Hey, what's up, guys? Alan Bishop back with the One Piece at a Time Distilling Institute, your source for all things distillation, be it home distilling or professional distilling. It's all the same to me. So today we're back here with a viewer question. We're doing a little marathon session of viewer questions to get into some things I hadn't been able to get into for a few days because of life being in the way, for whatever that's worth. As always, please reach out to me at bishopshomegrown@gmail.com and or any of my social media and or the YouTube comments below with any of your distilling related questions, and check out thealchemistcabinet.com for all the things I do, including links to my other podcast, Distiller's Talk, as well as our paranormal podcast, If You Have Ghosts, You Have Everything, and our store, which supports this channel. So I should just record that one time, and every time I do a video, just drop it in there randomly, right? You know, at some point in time, I need to record it like Wile E. Coyote. I'll just do it silently with little white signs that I hold up as I go. So anyways, moving on. So we had a question here from the YouTube channel from the Mad Mick, who has asked questions in the past as well and comments quite a bit on there. I always appreciate his questions and comments as well. So Alan, here's a question. Is it worth filtering white shine with activated charcoal? And does it have to be below a certain alcohol content to be effective? Best wishes, great content. This is a fantastic question, by the way. So this is kind of one of those style sort of points of view in a lot of ways. So let me start it from the standpoint of, do you need to filter your shine through charcoal or activated carbon, as it were, whatever you want to use? No. Have I done it before? Yes. Did I do it for qualitative reasons, or did I do it for stylistic reasons? Mostly stylistic reasons. Qualitatively, if you're just trying to make good shine, and you've made good cuts, you've got your fermentation under control, you've had a good clean fermentation that did exactly what you wanted, and you understand the fundamentals of distillation, you're able to make good cuts between your hearts and between your heads and your hearts and your hearts and your tails, etc. You really shouldn't have any reason to need to filter that through charcoal. Now, I do advise people quite often to get them a piece of like unbleached felt, or get some unbleached toilet paper, paper towels, or something like that, and keep it underneath the worm during distillation, mostly because that'll catch any copper salts that come over, or any particulates that might happen to come over during distillation, unless you just absolutely puke the still, and then it's not a good time for anybody. Now, stylistically, why would I want to use activated carbon or charcoal, as it were? And I want to make sure that people understand there's a difference between the two things here that we're talking about. So if I wanted to use activated carbon, I might use that if I wanted to make a light spirit, right? Now, we're going to presume that if I were doing this, I was already going to be doing a highline distillation, going up to 170, 180, even to 190 proof, right? Trying to make a vodka or a very light style whiskey, or like the Samagon that we made on this channel in the past from Russia. For me, it might be worthwhile to run that, especially on the more neutral side. If I'm trying to go for something very clean with very little aroma or very little flavor, I would carbon filter it. I might even do that if I was wanting to make some flavored stuff afterwards, although I tend to like a little base flavor from the base alcohol and the raw material, even in those flavored things like flavored moonshines, etc. So I might work on activated carbon if I were doing something of that nature, right? Now, that's kind of a quality thing. It's also kind of a stylized thing. Now, the other side of this is that you will see moonshiners often use charcoal, either sugar maple charcoal. I've seen people use oak. I've seen people be pretty random about it and use whatever fire embers, fire coals that they have on hand to filter with. This goes back to a twofold process that can be traced back through a lot of human history. It comes back from originally water filtration, goes back into the making barrels days of shipping things, including water on ships, understanding that charcoal mellows things out, takes care of some of the bacteria, cleans up some of the bacteria, etc. Or that water can just be filtered through charcoal, as was done in Africa for drinking water to clean it up back in the day. Same reason that bourbon barrels are actually charred. It's a filtration device, really, and especially with low rectification column distilled bourbon, like what you'll get from the big distilleries in Kentucky, where they're unable to really make a true heads cut. They need that heavy char in order to pull some of that acetaldehyde, ethyl acetate, etc. out of the distillation that is in the barrel. The other place that this comes from is Lincoln County process, and there was also what was called a Robertson County process. So this process of making whiskey is what you're familiar with Jack Daniels. The only real difference between the Lincoln County process and the Robertson County process is that the Lincoln County process was typically done with aged whiskey. The Robertson County process represented a style of whiskey that really doesn't exist that much anymore. If it does exist at all, it's within a small group of moonshiners or home distillers, which was basically exactly the same as the Lincoln County process, except it was almost always served as a white whiskey as opposed to a brown whiskey. Now, qualitatively, is there filtrations going on there? Yeah. If you maybe missed some cuts or didn't get them as tight as you want, can you pull some things out with that charcoal? I'm sure you could. I wouldn't use it as a qualitative thing, honestly, and especially not in the amounts that you're going to use it in at home, or as you would see on a certain TV show where they've got it in a little, coffee filter with just a handful of, fire coals in there or whatever. Qualitatively, I don't think that's going to do much of anything. Now, stylistically, to match those Tennessee styles of whiskey, I think it's very much worthwhile, especially using the sugar maple charcoal in the same way that Jack Daniel's does. You do pull some of that smoky character off of it. You pull some of that, residual sugar maple character off of it. Although if it's well-made charcoal, you shouldn't be pulling much of that off of it, if anything at all, because it should all have been turned into carbon. However, if you are familiar with the Jack Daniel's profile, you will know that there can be some smokiness to that particular whiskey, and I do believe that it does come from that filtration process. So, again, I don't think it's an either or. It's a stylized thing. Whether or not you want to make that kind of Tennessee style whiskey, or whether or not you want to make something that's neutral using just regular old activated carbon, they're worthwhile to play around with. You may not even know that you like that style whiskey if you're doing, let's say, the sugar maple charcoal thing. Maybe you don't even like Jack Daniel's, but maybe with your whiskey it adds something interesting to it, and it's all those things are worth trying. And I've certainly done plenty of them. I did used to at one point in time. I love that particular sugar maple sort of taste, and I also did this with hickory wood quite a bit. But I made my own retort to make my charcoal in, and what I did is I took a piece of copper tubing. I think it was a 2-inch piece of copper tubing, and I had it up on clamps on the wall, holding it straight up and down on the wall. I took a copper cap, drilled holes in it, put that on the bottom, and I packed that thing full of sugar maple charcoal. It was maybe 4 foot tall, I guess, something like that, and I would pour my shine through that, like a leach field, basically. Let it leach down through there, drain out of the bottom and everything, and it made good shine. Wasn't nothing wrong with it. That was just straight up sugar shine when I was a lot younger. I'd probably do it again just to taste it again, honestly, or maybe I'd just do it again because I get bored with it. I have used, activated carbon from time to time if I want to go to a high proof and really have a very, very clean spirit as well, and kind of finish it after distillation. Particularly sometimes if I want to make a fortified wine or something like that where I don't have that particular kind of brandy that the wine's made out of on hand, I will try to make some very neutral spirits and use some carbon filtration, but I haven't really done that in a very, very long time. You can also do that with wine if you weren't aware. If you wanted to make a light style wine and clean all the flavor out of it, you can carbon filter it and get quite a bit out of it, and then add essences and all that stuff to it. But Mick, I hope that answered your question, man. I know that was long-winded. I know it was very roundabout. Some of these questions, sometimes they're hard to, it's hard to put your finger on the exact pulse of them, right? You kind of, because we're all very kind of set in our ways. We all have our own interpretation of what all these distillation things mean, and as long as on the science side of things you stay where you're supposed to be, it makes sense. The rest of it is just very stylized or personal preference and all that sort of stuff. So if I didn't get your question answered the right way, brother, you let me know, and we'll revisit it again. So I'll catch y'all later. Love you.